The summer night of August 7, 2008, hung heavy over Nankou Village, a quiet speck in Longjia Town, Wunan County, Hebei Province, China. It was the 7th day of the 7th lunar month, Qixi Festival, China's own Valentine's Day, steeped in tales of star-crossed lovers. In the Li family home, the air buzzed with warmth. The aroma of Qiaogua pastries mingled with laughter as relatives gathered around the dinner table, their voices weaving a tapestry of joy. At its center was Li Shulan, a 21-year-old beauty whose slender frame and radiant smile had earned her the title of Nankou's village flower. Everyone loved her, not just for her looks, but for her gentle, cheerful spirit. Then, mid-conversation, her phone buzzed. Shulan glanced at it, excused herself, and stepped outside. The house was too loud, she said, too crowded to hear the caller. She grabbed a jacket, slipped through the door, and melted into the night. No one thought much of it. She'd be back soon, they figured. But as the hours ticked by, past 9 p.m., then 10, unease crept in. Her grandmother, a frail woman of 70, was the first to notice. "Where's Shulan?" she rasped, her voice cutting through the chatter. The room fell silent. Her parents dialed her number. No answer, just a cold, unreachable void. Panic took root. The family spilled out into the dark, their shouts echoing down the dirt paths of Nankou. "Shulan! Shulan!" Neighbors joined the search, flashlights slicing through the shadows. Hours stretched into midnight, but there was no trace of her. It was as if the earth had swallowed her whole. Dawn broke on August 8th, grim and gray. At 6:30 a.m., a group of villagers widened their hunt, trudging past a small pond 100 meters from the Li home. The water's surface was still, too still, until tiny bubbles broke the calm. Someone squinted, then froze. Beneath the murky depths, a pale shape shimmered. A body, naked, face up, lifeless. The scream that followed shattered the morning. Word raced back to the Li family. Shulan's parents stumbled to the pond, their worst fears confirmed in a single, gut-wrenching glance. It was her, their daughter, their pride, reduced to a corpse in silt. Tears fell, but questions burned hotter. How? Why? She hadn't slipped and drowned. No, the scene reeked of something darker. Her bare skin told a story of violence, of violation. This was no accident. By 7 a.m., 2 police vans roared into Nankou, sirens slicing the quiet. Officers from Wunan County's Criminal Investigation Division cordoned off the pond, pushing back a growing crowd. Forensic techs waded in, hauling Shulan's body ashore. The sight was unbearable, her once vivid face now slack, her head marred by deep, brutal gashes. The initial sweep yielded clues. A snap SIM card lay discarded in the grass nearby, but her phone was gone. The pond's edges showed no signs of a struggle, no scuffs, no blood. This wasn't where it happened. Detective Zhang Wei, a wiry man with sharp eyes, took charge. He paced the scene, piecing it together. "Blunt force trauma," a forensic tech muttered, pointing to the wounds. "Something heavy," repeated blows. Zhang nodded, his gaze drifting beyond the pond. A small grove of trees loomed nearby, its undergrowth trampled. He motioned his team over. There, among the flattened grass, they found it broken bricks, smeared with blood and strands of hair. Lab tests would later confirm it. Shulan's blood, Shulan's hair. This was ground zero. Back at the pond, the autopsy painted a grim picture. Death came between 7:30 and 8:30 p.m. the previous night, hours before the family even noticed her absence. The absence of clothes screamed assault, sexual assault, likely, though the water had washed away any biological evidence. Zhang clenched his jaw. The killer had struck fast, hard, and smart, dumping her here to cover his tracks. But why Shulan? And why on Qixi? The investigation kicked into gear. Zhang's team traced her last moments to that phone call. Who had lured her out? Records showed it came at 7:15 p.m., but the line was dead now. The SIM useless. The grove suggested an ambush. Someone had waited, watched. A lover? A stalker? The festival's romantic undertones gnawed at Zhang. Maybe it wasn't random. Maybe it was personal. As Nankou mourned, whispers spread. Shulan's death wasn't just a tragedy. It was the start of something worse. Zhang felt it in his bones. This wasn't over. Months dragged on after Li Shulan's murder, the case growing colder by the day. Nankou Village tried to heal, but fear lingered like damp rot. Detective Zhang Wei and his team chased every lead. Shulan's call traced to a landline in Tianjin, owned by her old friend Jia Xiaomai. A quick trip confirmed Xiaomai's alibi. She'd been with co-workers that night, miles away. Shulan's life offered no enemies, no jilted lovers. Just a girl who'd worked in Tianjin for 2 years and returned home days before her death. The trail dead-ended. Zhang's frustration mounted, but the village's quiet dread kept him pushing. Then, on February 15th, 2009, it happened again. The day before had been Valentine's Day, another love-soaked holiday. Li Nan, a 20-year-old bride-to-be, had kissed her future mother-in-law goodbye that evening. Her fiancé, Su Sanxin, had promised a romantic night. Dinner, flowers, the works. Around 8 p.m., Nan stepped out to meet him at the village gate. Su ran late, his factory shift dragging on. When he finally rolled up, she wasn't there. He figured she'd gotten tired of waiting and gone home to her parents. No big deal, he thought, heading to bed. Morning brought chaos. A farmer named Zhang stumbled across a body while hauling manure to a southern field. There, sprawled in the mud, was Li Nan, naked, a heavy brick pinning her down. Blood pooled around her head, her skull cracked from savage blows. Drag marks snaked through the dirt, hinting she'd been dumped. No clothes, no belongings, just a lifeless shell. The farmer's yell brought the village running. Su among them. When he saw her, his knees buckled. This wasn't a disappearance. This was slaughter. Police swarmed the scene by mid-morning, Zhang Wei at the helm. The parallels to Shulan's case hit, like a freight train. Young woman, stripped bare, bludgeoned with a brick, left in a remote spot. Forensics pegged her death at 8 p.m. the previous night, Valentine's night. But this time, the body wasn't submerged. The killer hadn't bothered with water. And there was a breakthrough. Traces of semen in Nan's body. DNA at last. Zhang's pulse quickened. They rushed the sample to the city lab, praying for a match. Hours later, the call came. No hits in the national database. The bastard was a ghost. Nankou reeled. 2 girls, 2 love-themed holidays, 2 brutal deaths. The press dubbed it the festival killer. Zhang convened his task force, dubbed 8.08 after Shulan's murder date. Maps sprawled across the table, red pins marking the pond and the field. Both sites were isolated, both victims local. The bricks tied it together, crude, heavy, effective. He's not just bold, Zhang said, tapping the pins. He's taunting us. Theories flew. Was it a scorned romantic, striking on days of love? Chi and Valentine suggested a twisted fixation. Or was it coincidence? A predator exploiting quiet nights? Nan's fiancé, Su, was grilled but cleared. His shift logs checked out. Her life, like Shulan's, was clean. No feuds, no secrets. The team split into 2 tracks, one hunting the caller angle from Shulan's case, a dead end with Xiaomai. The other digging into Nan's last hours. Nothing clicked. Fear gripped the region. Girls stopped walking alone after dusk. Parents escorted kids to school. Rumors swirled of Phantom, a sex-crazed lunatic stalking the fields. Zhang felt the pressure from above, from the families, from himself. 2 murders, 6 months apart, and he had jack squat. The killer was meticulous, leaving only what he wanted them to find. But Zhang knew one thing. Ghosts don't kill twice without slipping up. Then, for days later, the slip came. On February 18th, Zioquan, a pretty girl from nearby Shikotsang village, pedaled home from work. She cut her shift short, spooked by Nan's death. At 5 p.m., just 500 meters from safety, a shadow lunged. A brick smashed into her, knocking her off her bike. Hands grabbed her, dragging her toward a roadside ditch. She fought, but he was strong, tearing at her clothes, his intent clear. She couldn't scream, couldn't breathe. Then, salvation. A truck's horn blared. A young driver spotted the struggle. Leaning on the horn, the attacker bolted, vanishing into the gloom. Zioquan lived. bruised, terrified, but alive. At the station, she gave Zhang gold, a description. Tall, about 5 feet 9 inches, skinny, under 30. Spiky hair, long bangs shadowing his face. Blue jacket, jeans, odd shoes. It wasn't a face, but it was a shape, a predator's silhouette. And the brick? Same damn MO. Zhang slammed his fist on the desk. It's him. Same bastard. The net tightened. 3 attacks, 1 survivor. The festival killer was real, and he was close. Nankou Village was a pressure cooker by late February 2009. 3 attacks in 7 months, 2 dead, 1 clinging to life, had turned the quiet hamlet into a ghost town after dark. Detective Zhang Wei stood at the heart of it, his team fanning out across Wunan County. Xiaoquan's description burned in his mind. A young, lanky figure with spiky hair and a blue jacket. The brick attacks linked them all, Li Shulan, Li Nan, and now Xiaoquan. This wasn't random. It was a pattern, and the killer was escalating. Zhang's task force, 8.08, went into overdrive. They mapped a 2-kilometer radius around Nankou, Shikotsang, and Beishi, villages tied by proximity and fear. The profile sharpened. Male, 17 to 30, strong enough to wield a brick, reckless yet cunning. The semen from Nan's body was their ace, but without a suspect's DNA, it mocked them. Checkpoints sprouted at crossroads, patrols doubled. A female profiler, Officer Liu, sat with Xiaoquan, coaxing details. He was fast, Xiaoquan whispered. Young, hungry. Liu nodded. This was an old man's crime. It was raw, impulsive, unhinged. 5 names surfaced from the dragnet. Local boys matching the build, no alibis for the attack dates. Zhang hauled them in, one by one, for blood samples. They squirmed under his glare, but none cracked. The samples went to the lab. The suspects went home under surveillance. One of them's our guy, Zhang told his team. He's sweating now. The break came at dawn on February 19th. A call from dispatch. Wu Xiangchan, a 19-year-old from Nankou, had turned himself in. His parents dragged him to the station, pale and trembling. Zhang met him in the interrogation room. A scrawny kid with sharp cheekbones and a mop of spiked hair. The blue jacket hung on a hook nearby. Wu's eyes darted, but his voice was flat. I did it, he said. All of it. The confession unspooled like a nightmare. Shulan first, on Chishi. He'd spotted her alone, phoned to her ear, oblivious. A brick from the roadside, a quick strike, and he dragged her to the grove. There, he'd raped her, smashed her skull until she stopped moving, then dumped her in the pond. Nan next, on Valentine's. Waiting at the gate. She'd been easy prey, knocked out, assaulted in the field, finished with a brick. Xiaoquan was his 3rd mark, but the truck's horn spooked him. I'd have killed her too, he shrugged. Zhang's stomach churned. Why? He demanded. Wu smirked, then faltered. It started years back, he said. Dropped out after middle school, jobless, aimless. His parents spoiled him rotten. Only son, golden boy in a family that dismissed his sisters. Petty theft turned to porn obsession by 16. Stolen CDs, feeding a growing hunger. Girls shunned him. Too rough, too weird. Shishi 2008 snapped him. Seeing couples sparked envy, then rage. Shulan was his outlet. Nan followed when Valentine's reignited the itch. Xiaoquan, pure impulse. Evidence locked it tight. The bricks in the grove and field matched Nan's wounds. Shulan's phone, snatched by Wu, was traced to a ditch. Its SIM snapped. DNA from Nan's body sealed it. Wu's match. He'd burned the victim's clothes, left no prints. Smart, but not smart enough. In court, Wu stood blank-faced. No remorse, no apology, just a jab at his parents. They made me this way. The gavel fell in 2009. Death penalty. Executed swiftly. Nankou exhaled, but the scars remained. Zhang closed the file. Justice was done, but the cost? 2 lives, 1 shattered survivor, gnawed at him. Wu's upbringing, the porn, the unchecked spiral. It all brewed a monster. Love's holidays became death's stage. And for what? A kid too broken to feel. The execution of Wu Xiangchan came swift and quiet, a bullet to the back of the head in a stark prison yard somewhere outside Wanning County. It was late 2009, and the news trickled back to Nankou Village like a faint ripple on a still pond. No fanfare, no headlines, just a curt announcement from the courts. For Detective Zhang Wei, it should have been closure. The festival killer was gone, his reign of terror snuffed out. 3 cases, Li Shulan, Li Nan, Xiaoquan, solved in a brutal crescendo. Yet, as Zhang sat in his cramped office, the case file splayed open on his desk. A hollow ache gnawed at him. Justice had been served, but peace? That was another beast entirely. Nankou tried to move on. The dirt paths, once shadowed by fear, saw life creep back in. Mothers loosened their grip on their daughters, though dusk still carried a cautious edge. The pond where Shulan was found became a shunned spot, overgrown with weeds, a silent monument to the night that broke the village. The field where Nan lay was plowed over, as if fresh soil could erase the blood. Xiaoquan, the lone survivor, left the city. Her family said she couldn't bear the stares, the whispers. Zhang didn't blame her. Survival came with its own ghosts. He'd replayed Vu's confession 100 times, the kid's flat voice drilling into his skull. 19 years old, a life barely begun, yet twisted beyond repair. Spoiled rotten by parents blind to his rot. Fed by stolen porn and a festering resentment. Shulan's beauty, Nan's innocence, Xiaoquan's vulnerability. They weren't people to him, just canvases for his rage. The bricks, crude and heavy, were his signature, a taunt to a world he despised. Zhang had seen killers before, cold ones, calculated ones, but Vu was a storm, chaotic and cruel, and that storm had slipped through every crack until it was too late. The task force disbanded after the trial. 8.08 faded into memory, its members scattering to new cases. Zhang stayed put, rooted in Wanning, the weight of those months anchoring him. He'd face the families, Shulan's parents, hollow-eyed and silent. Nan's fiancée Sue, a man aged decades in a day. They thanked him, their voices brittle, but the gratitude felt empty. He couldn't bring their girls back. All he'd done was stop the bleeding. Weeks after the execution, a package landed on his desk. No return address, just a plain brown envelope with his name scrawled in black ink. Inside was a single photograph. Wu Xiangchan, maybe 15 or 16, grinning beside a pile of stolen CDs, his spiky hair already a mess. A note slipped out and signed in shaky handwriting. He wasn't always this. We failed him. Zhang stared at it, the words slicing deeper than he'd expected. Vu's parents? A sibling? Someone who'd watched the boy unravel and done nothing? He'd never know. He tucked into the file, a final piece to a puzzle he wished he'd never solved. Spring 2010 rolled in, and Nankou hosted its first Qixi festival since the murders. Lanterns glowed along the streets. Couples strolled hand in hand, a defiant reclaiming of joy. Zhang watched from the sidelines, sipping tea at a roadside stall. The village was healing, or at least pretending to. But his eyes drifted to the grove, now a tangle of thorns, and he wondered if the echoes of Shulan's screams still lingered there. Then came the call that jolted him upright. It was Officer Liu, the profiler, her voice tight. "Zhang, you need to see this." She'd been digging through old reports, cross-checking patterns. A case in Beishi, 2 kilometers north, had just hit her desk. A girl attacked 3 nights ago, bricked to the head, left naked in a ditch. She'd lived barely, and her story matched Xiaoquan's. A shadow from behind, a young man's spiky hair. Liu paused. The timing's off. Vu was already dead. Zhang's blood ran cold. He grabbed his coat, the photograph flashing in his mind. A copycat? A disciple? Or had Vu lied, covering for someone else? He bragged about acting alone, but that smirk. Had it hidden a partner? The drive to Beishi was a blur, his hands white-knuckled on the wheel. At the scene, the girl's description matched Vu's to a T, down to the damn shoes. But Vu was ash now, his DNA useless. Zhang knelt by the ditch, the damp earth soaking his knees, and saw it. A broken brick, blood-smeared, taunting him all over again. Back at the station, he pulled Vu's file, scouring every line. The confession had gaps, times unaccounted for, vague shrugs about wandering. Zhang cursed himself. He'd bought the Lone Wolf Act, the tidy bow on a messy case. Lu joined him, her eyes grim. He could have had a shadow, she said. Someone who watched, learned. They dug into Vu's circle. Dropouts, troublemakers, the kind he'd run with. One name surfaced. A cousin, 17, quiet but volatile, last seen with Vu months before Shulan's death. No alibi for the new attack. They hauled him in at midnight. The kid, Li Wei, cracked in an hour, tears streaking his gaunt face. Vu showed me, he sobbed. Said it was easy. I just wanted to feel it. No rape this time. Just a brick, the thrill of power. Zhang stared through glass, while rising. Vu's legacy wasn't dead. It had spawned. Li Wei got life, no parole. The village locked down again. Qixi's lanterns dimmed by fresh fear. Zhang stood at the pond one last time, the case file under his arm. He'd caught the monster, then his echo, but the cause was etched in every face he'd failed to save. He tossed a pebble into the water, watching the ripples fade. Enough, he muttered, turning away. Nanku would heal or it wouldn't. His job was done. But as he walked off, the wind carried a sound, a faint, mocking laugh from a grove. He didn't look back.